Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for this important webinar on the threats facing the federal community. I'm Jessica Clement, Legislative Director at the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, otherwise known as NARFE. Before I get started, a couple of housekeeping notes. A recording of this webinar will be available on the NARFE website in the coming days. Given the volume of participants, I will be unable to take questions at the end. However, I will provide you with an email address should you have any questions about what I discussed today. Thank you again for joining me. Let's get started. Here's what I'm going to cover. First, I'm going to review the proposals contained in both the Trump and the House fiscal year 2018 budgets, as well as other threats we've seen over the years. The budget process will play a key role in the likelihood of any changes to pay and benefits becoming law, so I'm going to review the process as well as the seriousness of the threats. I know many of you are wondering if you should change your retirement plans based on the proposals, so I'll try to answer that question as best I can with the information we have now. I'll close with the actions you can take to protect what you have rightfully earned. So let's start with the first budget from the new Trump administration. The proposals affecting federal employees and retirees are on the screen, and I'm going to go through each one individually. As proposed in the budget, these changes would take effect at the start of fiscal year 2018. That's October 1st of this year. These proposals create $149 billion in savings, which simply means $149 billion out of your pockets. Let's start with the budget changes to cost of living adjustments for both current and future FERS and CSRS retirees. I want to stress this. This budget would affect those currently retired. It would do so by eliminating COLAs for FERS retirees altogether and reducing COLAs by 0.5% for CSRS retirees. Looking at the average cost of living adjustment over the last 40 years, we projected what this change would mean for both FERS and CSRS retirees. The first calculation is pretty simple. If you're a current FERS retiree, the annuity you're receiving today is the one you'd get for the rest of your life. No more cost of living adjustments. The average FERS annuity is approximately $1,000 a month. Under this proposal, that $1,000 today would still be $1,000 20 years from now, greatly diminishing seniors' purchasing power and quality of life. The impact is financially less on CSRS retirees, but no less serious. Under the budget, CSRS retirees would receive the COLA minus 0.5%. In 2017, the COLA was 0.3%. Had this proposal been in effect, CSRS retirees would not have received a COLA at all. As you can see by the numbers, this change would have a profound compounding effect on federal retirees over their retired years. Let's turn now to the proposals impacting current employees. The Trump budget proposes increasing current FERS employees' retirement contributions by 1% every year for the next 6 years. Now, this proposal is nothing new. Congress has increased retirement contributions twice for new hires and has been trying to do so for current employees for years. Looking at the most recent data available, the average federal employee salary in 2016 was $81,578. The chart on your screen assumed a 2% pay raise in 2018, the first year the increase in retirement contributions would take effect. Make no mistake about it. An increase in retirement contributions is nothing more than a thinly veiled pay cut. As you can see, this change would have a significant impact on your pay during each of those 6 years and cumulatively. The Trump budget also proposed eliminating the FERS Annuity Supplement for new retirees effective October 1st, 2017. Now, we've seen this proposal before, but never for current employees. This supplement is provided to those who are eligible for early retirement and bridges the gap between that retirement age and age 62, when individuals are first eligible to apply for Social Security benefits. The budget provided no exception for those with mandatory early retirement, like federal law enforcement officers and air traffic controllers. Federal retirement expert Tammy Flanagan provided NARFE some estimates on how much this could cost an individual. Each case will differ, but using the current formula for someone with a full career, 35 years, who retires at age 57 with an expected Social Security benefit of $2,000 a month, eliminating the supplement would cost the retiree about $105,000 over the 5 years between retirement and age 62. This proposal would have a devastating effect on those nearing retirement who have planned on this benefit, which they paid for and rightfully earned. Again, I'm sure this next proposal comes as no surprise to most of you. The Trump budget would calculate future retirees' pensions on the highest 5 years of salary instead of the highest 3 years. This would take effect for anyone retiring on or after October 1st of this year. Let's look at an example using a GS-12 Step 10 employee in the Washington, D.C. locality pay area with a salary of $97,300 in year 1 and $103,600 in year 5. This is a simple example, and your specific circumstances will likely be a little different. As you can see, this change would cost the retiree hundreds every year. Let's take a look at a second example. Assuming a salary of $90,000 in year 1, but the same $103,600 salary in year 5, this employee received a promotion or moved to a more expensive locality pay area in year 3. Here, you can see that the impact of this proposal is much greater, costing the retiree thousands every year. That concludes a look at the first budget from the Trump administration. Turning now towards the House budget, compared to fiscal year 2016, the House fiscal year 2018 budget was relatively quiet on federal employee provisions. It suggested increasing retirement contributions, but did not specify an amount or the employees impacted. Similarly, it eliminates the Annuity Supplement, but does not specify to whom that would be applied. The important piece here is the $32 billion in reconciliation instructions to the committee with jurisdiction over federal benefits. I'll talk about why this is important in a bit. Unfortunately, the proposals in the Trump and House budgets aren't the only ones under consideration. There are 3 more viable threats we could be facing this year. However, while these threats were included in previous House budgets, they either haven't gained much traction or are lacking in specifics. For instance, the House FY16 budget proposed tying FEHBP premiums in retirement to years of service, but provided no additional information. We do not know what that would look like. It also proposed eliminating the first pension altogether, but only for new hires. And a proposal to reduce the federal workforce by 10% is hardly breaking news. However, it's important for you to know that these proposals could resurface at any time. Unfortunately, there are 2 proposals that aren't in the Trump or House budgets that I believe will gain some traction this year. I'm going to go over each of these. Previous budgets have proposed turning FEHBP into a voucher program. This would apply to all enrollees and remains a threat, although probably not a top one. But what does turning FEHBP into a voucher program mean? Right now, the government contribution is set at 72% of the average of all the plan premiums, which simply means as the government contribution goes up as healthcare costs rise. A voucher program would limit increases in the government contribution towards your health insurance premiums to inflation on consumer goods. With healthcare costs outpacing regular inflation, this proposal would force employees and retirees to pay more and more out of their own pocket over time for their earned health benefits. Within 10 years, you would likely go from paying 28% of premiums to more than 50% of premiums at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars, and even more thereafter. Another issue that has received praise from Republican leadership in Congress is a proposal to reduce the rate of return on the Thrift Savings Plan Government Securities Fund, or G Fund. Money in the G Fund is invested in special issue Treasury securities that receive the same rate of return as the Social Security Trust Fund. That return is based on Treasury securities of different lengths of maturity. It has averaged about 2.6% over the last 10 years. This is a safe investment, and that security is balanced with a low rate of return. This proposal, however, would limit the rate of return to the 3-month Treasury security, which has been close to zero in recent years. This essentially renders those investments useless, as it wouldn't keep pace with inflation, and you could very likely get a better rate of return at your bank. The latest estimate of the budget savings from this proposal is $32 billion over 10 years. So this is definitely one that could receive serious attention. However, and this is the part of this whole thing that really bothers me and leads me to believe that this proposal should be ignored for this reason alone. Much of that $32 billion in savings would not be realized, as individuals should and likely would move their money out of the G Fund if this proposal were to become law. To know how serious the threats are, it's crucial to understand the budget process. First, let's put the president's budget in perspective. It's essentially a request to Congress, which is meaningless unless Congress supports its proposals. But it also presents the president's policy agenda, so it's meaningful in that respect. The next step is for both chambers of Congress to pass their own budgets, and then come to an agreement on a joint budget resolution. Such a budget resolution lays out the annual spending levels, and then subsequent appropriations bills must be passed that provide the details. It's important to note that budget resolutions are not signed into law. However, resolutions set the stage for budget reconciliation bills. Whereas most bills in the Senate can be blocked from receiving a vote unless 60 senators agree to proceed, budget reconciliation bills are not subject to this rule. This means they only need a majority, or 50 votes in the Senate, to pass. Yesterday, the House Budget Committee approved a budget resolution for fiscal year 2018. While that resolution still needs the support of the full House and Senate, it includes at least $32 billion worth of spending cuts from federal retirement and health benefit programs via reconciliation instructions. Reconciliation will likely be used to move large-scale tax reform legislation. If this resolution is approved by both the House and the Senate, it would tie the fate of federal benefit cuts to political must-pass tax reform legislation, making it much more difficult to defeat in the future. I know that's all really complicated, but the key takeaway is that the budget resolutions being considered right now are the first step in a process that could lead to a budget reconciliation bill that could include cuts to federal retirement and health benefits. And if that bill is tied to tax reform, the chances of passage are even greater. So now that you know what the threats are and the legislation they could appear in, is any of this likely to become law? How serious is Congress about cutting your earned pay and benefits? As I mentioned on the last slide, budget reconciliation tied to tax reform represents the biggest threat to your earned retirement and health benefits. Should a budget resolution with reconciliation instructions pass the House, and that's a big if, the stage is set for cuts. However, those leading tax reform legislation want to see this get done, and muddying the bill with federal benefit issues could doom passage. I think the likeliest of all the proposals to be considered are an increase in retirement contributions for current employees and the change in the G Fund's rate of return. I don't think it's a coincidence that the reconciliation instruction of $32 billion is the same as the savings associated with the G Fund proposal. However, congressional gridlock and a lack of unity in the controlling party, the Republicans, are making it difficult for Congress to get anything done. But anything can happen, and federal employees and retirees would be wise to stay vigilant. Your participation in this webinar shows your commitment to ensuring these proposals don't become law. Many current federal employees are worried about these proposals and understandably are wondering whether to retire before they come into effect. This is easily the question NARFE has received most often since the president's budget was released in May. Well, the answer is simple. Don't. At least not yet. First, as I've detailed, some of these proposals have better chances than others, and none of them is certain to become law. Second, retirement timing does not protect you from proposals that would eliminate or reduce your COLA, force you to pay more for health insurance, or change the rate of return on the G fund. Third, even if proposals to eliminate the FERS Annuity Supplement or go to the high five were to become law, there will very likely be time to put in for retirement before the effective date of those proposals. There are a lot of variables right now, but one of the best ways you can ensure these proposals don't become law is to fight back. NARFE's easy-to-use Legislative Action Center is a great way to express your concern with these proposals to your members of Congress. Several letters are available that you can edit and send. Access to this site is not limited to NARFE members. When contacting your elected representatives, you should make the issue personal. Tell them what you do or did for the federal government, how it served your community, and what these cuts would mean for you personally. Federal employees and retirees reside in every congressional district across this country, but you wouldn't know it listening to some on television denigrate public service. Federal employees and retirees are their own best advocates. Do not let these proposals gain traction without expressing your views. Just don't express them from your government computer or on government time. And if you're not currently a member of NARFE, I encourage you to consider joining. There is strength in numbers, and the larger NARFE is, the louder we can be on Capitol Hill defending what you have rightfully earned. Visit the NARFE website today to learn more. That concludes my webinar. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Please visit the NARFE website for any additional information you may need. Also, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact NARFE's Legislative Department at the email address on your screen. That's leg@narfe.org. Thank you again.